And a very happy Monday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk across the glass.
John, this weekend was an important international milestone. It has now been officially 100 days since Eric Garcetti became the ambassador to India, and he made a little video to celebrate.
I've seen that India reveals itself every single day in a new way.
Sounds like he's receiving things on both ends.
I receive things on both ends.
We often lead from the front, but it is time for us to lead from the back.
Critics say this largely is Garcetti's fault.
If he's the one that we sent there as our best and brightest, what do you think the Indians think of us?
I believe they are insulted on a daily basis, but at least we're rid of him. Could you imagine Eric Garcetti doing the storm press conferences and rhyming to us to stay in our homes? Because he did that during COVID.
Just be smart and stay apart.
If he was still the mayor, the one thing I'd say is that when he's standing there in the windbreaker holding the press conferences and meeting with the various officials, the patches on the front of the windbreaker would be at least 3 times the size as Karen Bass's. And Karen Bass's patches are about as big as my face. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, as all of us experienced over the weekend, something happened that I never thought I would say in a million years. We got hit by a hurricane.
Kind of.
It was a hurricane in the ocean, then it became what? A tropical storm, and then it just became something that turned everything into a mess.
Yes, it is the first tropical storm to hit Southern California in 80 years. So it was significant.
That's right. And right in the eye of the storm, when it hit California proper, was my house. My city, my county. If you live in Riverside County, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because the streets that you drive on every day now look like the Nile River. Not only the streets that you drive on, but the golf courses you play on, and even I-10, which was closed last night and is still closed, and they don't even have an estimate as to when that's going to reopen.
You can't go home.
The 111 is closed. Date Palm is closed. Gene Autry is closed. Indian Canyon is closed. The only way I'm getting home is if I go buy some new Nikes or loot them from East L.A. So I'm going to be working out of the studio for a while from the mothership. And get this, my house actually held up okay. I know this is TMI, and I hate boring you with the details of my life because I'm not a really dynamic person off the air. I just watch a lot of television and drink scotch. But anyway, I have this new house that I'm renovating, and I redid the backyard too. And the contractor who handled my backyard sold me on this A1 fantastic drainage system. He said, if you put this in, if you get some of the sweet action, you're not going to have to worry about any flooding. You're not going to have to worry about any rainstorms. You're not going to have to worry about any scattered showers. You're not going to have to worry about any of that. He never said hurricane because no one anticipated that would be on the horizon. But I've got to tell you, Randy, that given all the destruction that's all around me, everywhere you turn, my house was actually fine. A friend of mine FaceTimed me from my backyard this morning. I was expecting to see the lost city of Atlantis without the gold, and you can hardly tell it even rained. No palm tree fragments, no Wicked Witch of the West, none of that. It just looks like my backyard.
Now, if you could only get there.
That's right. That's not going to happen for a while. So guess what? I guess at a certain point in time in Gavin Newsom's California, all of us get to have our turn at being homeless. Now, the place where I broadcast the show from every day, that's a different story. If I'm going to do the show from that location in the future, I'm going to need a snorkel, and you're going to have a hard time hearing me. So I'm going to have to scout a new location until the mold is removed. When I'm telling you water is everywhere, water is literally everywhere. That whole valley had an enema. All those images that you've been seeing on the Today Show and Good Morning America and whatever they're calling the one on CBS now, it's all from Rancho Mirage and Cathedral City. No one outside of California knows the difference. They all think the whole valley is Palm Springs. It's not. They're different cities. And the way it works is the first one you get when you get to the Coachella Valley is Desert Hot Springs. That's where all the meth is sold. Then you get to Palm Springs, and that's where you have the Hollywood crowd, the gays, the retirees. And then you go to Cathedral City, and that's where the help lives. That's where the people who work in the restaurants live, work in the hotels, those sorts of places. Rancho Mirage, that's where the golfers are. That's where the presidents live. That's where Obama stays. That's where Eisenhower stayed. That's where President Ford lived. And the two areas that got absolutely hit the hardest out there, well, three actually, it was Cathedral City, Rancho Mirage, and Desert Hot Springs. So if you're jonesing for some meth and you want to go out to Desert Hot Springs, you're probably not going to be satisfied. Now, we really don't know when all of that is going to be fixed. What was strange to me, Randy, is last night, did you notice that the flights weren't all canceled?
That was surprising.
Yeah. I wonder if anything happened.
Haven't heard about any big airline disasters in the last 24 hours. So
Yeah.
at least there's that.
Okay, we'll watch the news. But what a wild weekend that was. And, you know, the only reason I'm here is because I had tickets to the Angel game on Sunday. And then they canceled the game on Sunday and they rescheduled it to Saturday. So I was supposed to be out in the desert. I was supposed to have a tea time in the morning on Saturday and then go to a birthday party later in the day and then come out and go to the Angel game on Sunday. But when they switched the Angel game from Sunday to Saturday afternoon, I thought to myself, a little forward planning, I should bring a bag. And I should plan on staying the night in Orange County on at least Saturday night. So that way, if the storm is bad, I can just stay down here and I'm not stuck out there. Because the two things I was worried about was getting stuck out there if they shut down the roads and the power going out. Well, as it turns out, the power's gone in and out. It hasn't been out consistently, so they're doing a pretty good job with that. But the roads are now totally shut down. So I likely wouldn't be able to do the show today had I not stayed in Orange County after the Angel game. So here I am, and I can be here as long as it takes before it's safe to go back to the Coachella Valley. But if you have a place out there, be very careful. Randy, in Big Bear, they had a ton of water dumped on them as well.
It's been a bad year for Big Bear.
No kidding. And then in Los Angeles, I drove through downtown this morning. Downtown looked fine. The West Side looked fine. Orange County looked fine. But apparently it was pretty rough out in the Santa Clarita, Antelope Valley areas.
Yeah, Santa Clarita got, I think, 11, 12 inches of rain. It was just nonstop. But for the most part, the San Fernando Valley, the West Side, it rained quite a bit. That's it. There wasn't really any wind. I did have a big tree branch come down in my neighborhood. So, now I have to make a different left turn. So that's really impacted my day.
Did you see the images of the road collapsing out in Santa Clarita?
No, yes, I did see that. I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah. There was a road that just absolutely collapsed under the pressure of the rain, and it just crumbled away. Very dramatic images. Also, over the weekend, the Dodgers, like the Angels, canceled their Sunday game, and they rescheduled it to midday on Saturday, and you know who threw out the first pitch.
Yeah.
That's right. Your favorite fake doctor and mine, Barbara Ferrer. And Randy, thankfully, one of our listeners was at the game and recorded the fake doctor throwing the first pitch out.
And it is quite a first pitch to see. What's the easiest way for people to find this? If they look up you on Twitter, Johnny Don't Like?
Look me up, and it's there. And after I tweeted it out, everyone started to retweet it. And then it started making the papers all over. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this to you so you have an accurate idea as to what it looked like. First of all, she goes out there with the gray hair all over the place. She looked like Christopher Lloyd in Back to the Future.
A little bit. She did not have a mask on.
No mask, but she was wearing those Terminator 2 sunglasses. And they gave her the ball, and she must have gone out. She didn't go anywhere near the pitcher's mound.
No.
It must have been, and correct me if I'm exaggerating here, somewhere between 5 to 10 feet in front of home plate.
That's about right. It's almost nothing. She is right outside of the dirt. She is
right.
Barely on the grass.
And typically what happens when a dignitary throws out a first pitch is that one of the players is the one that catches the ball. But it looked like none of the players were willing to do that for her. So they had some random person out there catching the first pitch.
Who organized this?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
So she gets out there with the Terminator 2 sunglasses and the Christopher Lloyd hair. And she stares down the catcher like she's a closer who's trying to get the save in the game. She didn't just throw it out right away. She stood there and was playing psychological games with the crowd. Remember Lee Smith, the old closer for the Angels, and he played for a million different teams? He would come out there and stare down the batter for a long, sustained period of time before he'd pitch the ball. Troy Percival used to do that. Troy Percival did it because he was blind, and he was about ready to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball right at you, and he can't see 2 feet in front of his face, but he would stare you down nonetheless. So Ferrer gets out there with the ball and stares down the person that she's throwing it to in those Terminator 2 sunglasses. She then winds up like Hideo Nomo used to. Remember him, the Japanese pitcher the Dodgers had for a while? And he would just throw his whole body into the pitch. So he would throw the ball, and he would end up somewhere halfway between the pitcher's mound and home plate. Both of her feet went off the ground when she threw that ball.
It's a weird thing to watch on replay over and over again, as I'm doing right now, because as she throws the ball, she also kicks the air.
Yes, she went full-on airborne. And she barely made it there 5 feet in front of home plate with all of her muscle and all of her might. She willed it to happen, and it happened, but had she been 2 feet beyond where she was, it would have gone in the dirt. And they had her throw this first pitch for, I believe it was a 105 start, 107 start?
Yeah, for the first game of the doubleheader.
Okay, so it was like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. They had her throw it out sometime in the 12 o'clock hour. It wasn't like it happened right before the game. It was like 25, 30 minutes before first pitch. So everyone was getting their hot dog. And with these makeup games, it's like playing in front of a minor league audience. No one's there. Because most people who had tickets for a game on Sunday had plans to do something on Saturday. Some of those plans could not be disrupted, so you only get a certain percentage of the people with tickets who show up. So no one was paying attention. To the extent that anyone was, there definitely were boos out there. And she's getting roasted all over social media.
It is pretty fantastic that one person took a video of this, and all they did was they posted it, and the only thing they wrote in the subject line of the tweet is @JohnnyDon'tLike.
That's right. And then it went all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's what happened this weekend over here. I hope you stayed safe. I hope you stayed dry. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, reacting to the video of Barbara Ferrer throwing out the first pitch at the first of the 2 Dodger doubleheader games on Saturday. Will says the reason she had to put the Terminator glasses on was because Broomhilda wasn't able to find 1 million SPF sunblock for her eyes.
Next slide.
If you'd like to listen to podcast editions of last week's show or any other shows you'd like to listen to, Randy, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, or go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. Search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube. There are so many ways to download this show. You will definitely not feel like a dummy if you do it.
If the cashier is dummy.
Crime is on the rise here in the state of California, and the national spotlight is on our public officials. What are you going to do about it? Specifically about the smash and grabs. We've seen dramatic video from the Americana in Glendale. We've seen it from the Topanga Mall in the San Fernando Valley. We saw it from the Nike store in East LA. Lots of crime, lots of brazen criminals, but not a whole lot of arrests and certainly not a whole lot of prison time. So the mayor decided to do a sit-down with public radio to talk about what she plans on doing about it.
And first up, here's Karen Bass saying that the way to solve this crime crisis is for it to get colder outside.
Now, when you spoke to NPR back in April, you mentioned how you've been studying crime trends for the last 3 decades, that crime cycles go up, come back down. From what you've seen, Mayor...
Like when you elect George Gascon, they go up and up and up and up and up. And when you finally kick his ass out of office next year, they will go down.
What factors cause crime to go up?
One of the traditions is that it's summer, and it tends to be that crime kicks up in the summer.
So it's such a hot girl summer that they needed to steal all the handbags at Nordstrom's?
Oh, they're not going to steal anything right after Labor Day. You got to get it in now.
One of the traditions is that it's summer, and it tends to be that crime kicks up in the summer. And what I certainly hope and assume is that this is going to be an anomaly. I'm just speculating that what we will find is that we have a couple of organized groups that are doing this. They will be discovered, they will be arrested and prosecuted, and then this sort of crime will go away.
Okay. Couple of thoughts. First, if she's saying that crime is just a summer phenomenon, then you're making the assumption that there's a big difference between summer and winter in the jurisdiction that you're referring to. Maybe that's the case in some place like Chicago or Minneapolis or Buffalo, where during the winter it's freezing and it's snowing and there's a blizzard and something like a smash and grab is just harder to do. But in Los Angeles and in much of the state of California, the weather during the summer is very similar to the weather in the winter. We're not dealing with snow. We're usually not dealing with hurricanes, usually. You're not dealing with blizzards. You're not dealing with snowstorms. That doesn't happen here. So I guess the implication could be you have a lot of kids who are out of school. They have a lot of time on their hands, and it's a crime of opportunity. Well, it's not a crime of opportunity. These are organized crime rings. And of the arrests that they've made, Randy, I've seen only 4. 3 women from the state of Washington, and then 1 guy who was local. But they were all adults. I have not seen one child, one minor under the age of 18 involved in any of this yet who's been picked up.
Well, the ones at the Nike store that weren't even wearing a mask, they were underage. And the reason is they know that they can't be identified on video because they're minors. So why even wear a mask when you steal the Nike shoes?
Okay, so that may be high school students that are out on summer break with too much free time on their hands, the Nike situation. But what happened in Glendale, what happened in the Valley, those were organized crime rings.
Well, and not only that, and we've been covering these extensively since the first big Nordstrom's hit in San Francisco in 2021, these crimes happen year-round. We have not seen an end to the smash and grab since then. Now, there are smaller ones, but these things are happening all the time. And how about the common occurrence that we're seeing here, and especially in Oakland, of people using a car they stole to smash into a building and then grab everything they can? These crimes are constant. There's been no slowdown, not even in the winter.
No. The other angle I think she could be playing is that the thing that they're blaming everything on is global warming. Because if you blame it on global warming, that's something that's not provable. And if it's global warming, then you can't blame them. Why did we have all of the fires in Maui? Well, it's not because the guy who was in charge of the water didn't release it. It's because of global warming. Why do we have fires in California? Well, it's not because we won't clean up the homeless encampments, which start half of them, or force our public utilities to fix their faulty equipment. It's because of global warming. Why is it that there's a crisis at the border right now? It's not because Joe Biden said, go ahead and come here, come one, come all. It's because of global warming. Climate change is pushing people out of the third world and into places like the United States. Why is crime on the rise? Well, it's global warming. I guess the heat makes people anxious. Makes them want to break the law. That's the motivating factor here. Global warming.
Maybe it was going to get so hot that they stole the purses to fill them with water so they could have it like a pouch. And that way they wouldn't die of thirst. It's like Michael Moore in that interview with Mark Brown. Well, you got to understand some of these thefts are crimes of necessity because the poor guy just needs to eat.
Think about this for a second. If anyone in this audience or any man on the street was asked that question by a reporter, why is crime going up? Think about the answers you would get. Prop 47, that comes to mind. No bail, that comes to mind. Proposition 109.
AB 109.
Why do I keep saying that? That's like the third time I've done it.
We didn't vote for that one. That one got shoved down our throats by Jerry Brown.
You know what I need? I need one of those shock collars you can put on a dog, where every time I do that, you just zap me from the control room. Then I'll learn, finally.
Now, I don't have a zap sound effect, but this is as loud as a zap.
I didn't say cruel and unusual punishment. Or how about George Gascon? We have a DA who flatly refuses to prosecute crime as a point of policy.
Quite frankly,
none of that came out of her mouth. No, it's because it's summer. Because it's summer.
No, she is not going to criticize Gascon any which way or how.
You know, just think about this. If crime is now a summer activity, the next time you go to Target in the spring and they start to put the summer lines out, you know, they have the board shorts and the flip-flops and the sundresses and the bathing suits. Maybe next time they can put some masks and hoodies out, too. This is part of your summer wear. Get your sundress and get your looting clothes. This is what people do. Build your sandcastle and then go rob a department store. And then you can have a nice, refreshing dinner al fresco at night because of the weather. Do you realize how dumb that answer is?
By the way, do you know when the first smash and grab at Nordstrom's in 2021 was?
My guess would be January.
November 21st.
Okay, there you go.
It was freaking cold when they broke into that one up there.
Was it unseasonably warm that day?
It was not.
it's summer. You know, she had to workshop that in front of someone at City Hall and think, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, go with that.
Well, this is why she does the interview with KPCC, because she knows she gets no pushback for anything she says.
Oh, yeah, we're experiencing crime here because it's summer. Go back to that clip for a second, because she talked about, he framed it like she had these social researchers compiling data. And then after he makes it sound extremely scientific, she says, oh, no, this is just a theory of mine.
Now, when you spoke to NPR back in April, you mentioned how you've been studying crime trends for the last 3 decades, that crime cycles go up, come back down. From what you've seen, Mayor, what factors cause crime to go up?
One of the traditions.
What is she, a scientist now?
Oh, yeah. We're going live to Yale here.
One of the traditions is that it's summer, and it tends to be that crime kicks up in the summer. And what I certainly hope and assume is that this is going to be an anomaly. I'm just speculating that what we will find is that we have a couple of organized groups that are doing this. They will be discovered, they will be arrested and prosecuted, and then this sort of crime will go away.
So the question is framed as scientific data has been compiled by your office, and then the answer involves the phrase, I'm just speculating.
Well, it also doesn't help with her scientific theory that we already have evidence that the one person they did arrest in the Glendale smash and grab at the Yves Saint Laurent at the Americana got out on no bail.
When she specifically said that that wouldn't happen. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Mr. Randy Wang is minding the mailbag.
Well, here's one of the ones I can read on the air. There's a few about Barbara Ferrer I cannot read on the air, but they did make me laugh. When it comes to Karen Bass saying that this is a seasonal problem, John writes in and says Karen Bass gives a whole new meaning to the boys of summer.
Yeah.
Well, if Christmas is the season of giving, what's the summer? The season of taking?
It's not a namsy-pamsy thing.
A large retaining wall just collapsed in Palmdale. So now it looks like Lancaster is actually on top of Palmdale.
Oh, boy.
Boy, the cleanup from this storm is going to be a pain in the ass. Everything just looks so filthy. Mud is truly disgusting, and it's all over the place.
And this is the first time I've ever been in the middle of a tropical storm. Tropical rain stinks.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's one thing if you get water inside your house. That's a pain, but you can get rid of it. If you have mud inside your house, that's a different story altogether.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. All right. It's been a busy day for the mailbag over at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you have another email for us.
That's right. Brooke writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hey, guys, I don't know if you know this, but there's a famous live album from the 70s by Peter Frampton called Frampton Comes Alive. I was watching footage of it on YouTube recently and noticed a woman who looked exactly like Cecily Myrick Cruz in the front row, waving her undergarments around and singing along. I listened to the album again, and sure enough, about a minute into one of his classics, I could hear her in the background. And there's actually 2 different songs that Cecily Myrick Cruz appears on in this album. Here's one of them.
Ooh, baby, I love the way it's off.
I'll play you the other one in the next break.
You know, I spent a lot of time in my life listening to the soft hits of the 70s over on Coast. I don't believe I've ever heard that version of it.
Ooh, baby, I love the way it's off.
We've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.